She was laughing when she saw me, right up until she saw who was on my arm. Corinne's champagne glass froze halfway to her lips. Her eyes twitched. Her mouth opened, then didn't close. She blinked like she was trying to reset reality. Perfect. Shayla squeezed my hand, firm but calm, like we'd rehearsed it. We hadn't. We didn't need to. It took Corinne a full 8 seconds to move. 8 seconds too long. Because by then, people had already noticed. Her coworkers, her boss, his friends. The music was still playing, some obnoxious remix of a Marvin Gaye track, but the room had shifted. You could feel it. Corinne started walking toward us like she was crossing a minefield. Smile tight, heels clicking, and then her voice, sickly sweet, stretched thin. "Everett, what are you doing here?" That was her mistake, acting like I was the surprise. Shayla answered before I could. "Oh, I invited him. I figured if you get to sleep with my husband, I should at least get to meet yours." The woman holding a tray of shrimp cocktails gasped. Someone dropped a glass behind us. And me? I just stood there, trying not to throw up. Not from nerves. Not anymore. From the sheer weight of what it took to get to that moment. Because 14 nights ago, I was crying in my car outside a Walgreens, clutching a bottle of antacids and wondering why my wife kept working late. And now? Now I was walking into her affair like it was a red carpet. And I wasn't alone. 14 nights earlier, I was hunched over the steering wheel of my beat-up Nissan, parked behind a Walgreens, hands shaking from something I didn't have a name for yet. I wasn't crying like in the movies. It was Messier. My face was just leaking. I couldn't even tell if I was more nauseous or furious. I kept staring at the receipt in my hand like it would explain everything. It didn't. It was just a stupid receipt from a boutique hotel across town, folded up in the side pocket of Corinne's gym bag. Dated 3 weeks ago. She had told me she'd been at a yoga retreat that night with her wellness circle. That's what she called it. A group of women who shared gluten-free recipes and took digital detox weekends together. I never questioned it. I mean, what kind of guy accuses his wife of cheating on him during a sound bath? But here's the thing about yoga pants. They have zippers. Tiny ones. And inside that tiny zip pocket was a single, pale gold bobby pin. Not hers. She has auburn hair. This was blonde. And not even her brand. I knew, because I've stood in pharmacy aisles holding her preferred brand like an idiot more times than I can count. So I cracked. I did what I promised I'd never do. I looked through her old iPad. She barely used it anymore. Claimed the battery was trash, but I knew she used to link it to her phone. Maybe she forgot to log out. Maybe the universe decided I deserved at least one breadcrumb. And there it was. Messages. Hidden. Archived. Not even under a name. Just an emoji. A ghost. Ghost. Ghost cat. That damn nickname again. You smell like Jasmine again. Does he even notice? He thinks sweatpants are foreplay. I'm dying. Next time bring wine. And not that cheap crap he drinks. I felt like I'd swallowed a mouthful of thumbtacks. I couldn't believe what I was reading. But it wasn't just the texts. It was the videos. One from the hotel. Blurry, but unmistakable. Her laugh. His voice. His hand on her thigh. The way she said, "Stop," and didn't mean it. I don't know how long I sat there, staring at the screen like it was on fire. Maybe hours. I only remember the buzzing. Not from the iPad, from me. Like my bones were short-circuiting. I wanted to scream. I wanted to hit something. But instead, I Googled his name. Martin Penley. UX consultant. 2 kids. Married. Wife named Shayla. And just like that, the target shifted. Because it was no longer just about revenge. It was about clarity. If I was drowning in this hell, I needed to know I wasn't alone. And I was right. When I messaged Shayla, I expected anger, denial, maybe even threats. Instead, she called me in 5 minutes flat. No hesitation. She said, "Tell me everything. Then I'll tell you mine." That conversation was the most honest thing I'd had in months. And that's how we planned it. Quietly, calmly, like 2 people building a bomb. We would walk into that rooftop party together. Not loud. Not messy, just visible. So when Corinne saw me standing beside the wife of the man she'd been sleeping with for months, her world cracked. And for once, she couldn't talk her way out. The rooftop had gone quiet, not silent, but quiet in the kind of way that makes people stop pretending to have fun. Music still played, lights still glowed, but the energy had shifted. You know that feeling when a teacher walks into a classroom mid-fight? Yeah, that's what it felt like. Corinne's face was doing that thing. Smiling like nothing was wrong. while her eyes begged the universe to stop time. Martin was 3 steps behind her, holding 2 drinks, completely unaware. Until he saw us. Until he saw his wife holding my hand, standing next to his mistress, who was pretending she hadn't just had the oxygen punched out of her lungs. I didn't move. Neither did Shayla. We weren't there for chaos. We weren't there to throw glasses or scream obscenities or rip up pictures. We were there to exist. Loudly. Unavoidably. Visibly. Martin stopped dead. You could almost see the gears turning behind his smug consultant face. First shock, then confusion, then fear. He didn't drop the drinks. He didn't say a word. He just stared at his wife like she'd pulled a gun. Corinne finally tried to speak. Her voice came out too high, too chirpy. This is unexpected, she laughed. Too loud. Too fake. I didn't know you two. Knew each other. Shayla tilted her head slightly. Oh, we've gotten very close recently. Haven't we, Everett? I didn't say anything. I didn't have to. Corinne's laugh died halfway out of her mouth. She looked between the two of us, trying to figure out how much we knew. The problem was, she had no idea how far we'd gone. That we had dates, times, videos, a literal spreadsheet. She didn't know we had audio, too. Shayla had found an old baby monitor stuffed in a drawer. Martin never noticed when she slipped it under their bed before his naps. The recordings weren't cinematic, just muffled gasps and confessions whispered into sheets that didn't belong to either of them. I'm just so sick of his whining, Corinne had said. Everett folds my underwear like he's scared of it. People at the party started noticing. You could feel it. Their eyes. Their phones slowly lowering. Conversations dying out in half sentences. Someone near the drinks table whispered, "Isn't that her husband?" Another voice. "And who's that woman with him?" Martin tried to play the hero. "Okay, I think this has gone far enough," he said, stepping forward. "Let's take this conversation somewhere private." But Shayla cut him off like a guillotine. "Oh, you mean like the hotel room you lied about to go screw my friend's wife?" That's when the music actually stopped. The DJ, some poor intern with a Bluetooth controller, must have panicked. Because suddenly there was no bass line to hide behind. Just the sound of my wife gasping and Martin sputtering like someone had just thrown cold water in his face. And then Corinne did something I never expected. She reached for my hand. Mine. As if this was some twisted misunderstanding and all we needed was a private talk and maybe a shared Uber home. "Everett," she said quietly. "Please, can we just talk?" I looked at her hand, then back at her face. "No," I said. "Calm. Cold. You already talked. For months. To him." And I turned away. Shayla and I walked straight past them, leaving 2 cheaters standing in the middle of their precious rooftop fairy tale, exposed like mannequins with all the wrong clothes on. But this wasn't the end. Not even close. Because what happened next took everything to a level none of us were ready for. We didn't make a scene when we left the rooftop. We didn't need to. That party would be remembered for the moment we showed up, not the moment we walked away. Shayla and I stepped into the elevator like nothing had happened. She fixed her lipstick in the mirror. I stared at my reflection and tried to remember how I even got here. I thought that would be the high point. Or the low. I honestly couldn't tell anymore. But I was wrong. What came next was something I never intended. Something that spiraled out of my control in the best possible way. We hadn't even made it home when Shayla's phone started blowing up. Calls. Messages. Group chats. Some were from her mutual friends, some from Martin's colleagues. One message just said, "You should see this. Now." A video. From the party. Of us. Walking in. Her line, "I figured if you get to sleep with my husband, I should at least meet yours." Clear as day. You could hear the gasp. You could see Corinne's expression crumble frame by frame. Someone had filmed it and posted it online. And it was already spreading. I'll admit it, I panicked. My heart dropped. I thought it would ruin everything. I thought Corinne would use it to play victim, to twist the story like she always did. But for once, the universe wasn't on her side. Because less than an hour later, someone else leaked more. Screenshots. Texts. From her phone. Not mine. Not Shayla's. Hers. I still don't know who did it. A jealous friend? One of her co-workers who'd had enough of her lies? Doesn't matter. What matters is that everything she'd ever said to Martin, about me, about Shayla, about their plans to phase us out, was now public. And brutal. One message read, "I can't stand his voice anymore. He talks like a tired dog. I swear if he says, 'Can we talk?' one more time, I'll scream." Another one. She's just a boring mom. He stays for the kids. But he says I make him feel alive. And another, dated just last week. This party is the perfect time to tell them. We do it together. Clean break. Except it wasn't a clean break. It was a firebomb. By morning, her phone had been disconnected. Her Instagram vanished. Her office number forwarded to voicemail. And Martin? Well, his LinkedIn said, open to work within 24 hours. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the message she left me. A voice note, 2 minutes and 41 seconds long. Her voice cracking halfway through. Her trying to explain how it just happened. How she never planned to fall in love with someone else. How she still loved me in a different way. I didn't respond. Not because I didn't have anything to say, but because for the first time in years, she didn't get to finish the conversation. But that afternoon, something unexpected happened. A friend, well, an old mutual friend, called to warn me. Corinne was on her way to my apartment. She was in a state. She'd seen the video, the texts, the fallout. She'd been drinking. She wanted to set things straight. I locked the door. I turned off the lights. I let the silence answer her. But Shayla? She was the one who heard the knock first. Then the pounding. Then the thud. When I opened the door, Corinne was collapsed in the hallway. Makeup streaked. Heels in one hand. Her phone shattered across the tile like her dignity. She had fainted. I didn't rush to help. I called 911. Calmly. Gave them my address. Then just stood there. Watching the woman who once said I was too soft to ever leave her, now lying unconscious outside the life she destroyed. And even then, it still wasn't over. The EMTs didn't ask questions. They just lifted her off the floor like she was any other case. But to me, she looked like a collapsed statue. Her confidence shattered. Her mask gone. Her carefully crafted persona, Corinne the charming, the dazzling, the untouchable, reduced to a woman on a stretcher with mascara smeared halfway down her cheek and blood on her ankle from where her heel had cut her. I didn't ride in the ambulance. I didn't follow. I just stood in the doorway and watched until the lights disappeared into the city. Shayla stood behind me in silence. She didn't say a word. She didn't need to. There was nothing left to say. I got a call from the hospital 2 hours later. She's conscious, the nurse said. She's asking for you. She says it's urgent. I almost hung up. I should have, but I didn't. I went. I don't know why. Closure? Curiosity? Maybe the sick part of me wanted to see if she'd even try to lie again. I wanted to look her in the eyes and know, once and for all, if there was anything real left beneath the wreckage. When I walked into that room, I expected drama. I expected tears, or accusations, or twisted explanations wrapped in half-truths. But what I saw instead was worse. She looked empty. Not broken. Not ashamed. Just hollow. Like someone who finally realized the house she burned down had no insurance. I didn't mean to hurt you, she said, her voice hoarse and quiet. I thought I'd be happy. I really thought he loved me. I didn't speak. I thought you'd just move on, she whispered. That you'd find someone nicer. I didn't think it would matter this much. I finally sat down. Not out of compassion, out of disbelief. That's your excuse? I asked. That I'd find someone else, so it wouldn't matter if you ripped my life in half. She didn't answer. But then she looked at me with something I hadn't seen in years. Fear. Real fear. Not of me. Of what came next. She reached for my hand. Out of habit, out of desperation, I don't know, and I pulled it away. That small motion shattered something between us permanently. You don't get to touch me, I said. Not anymore. She swallowed hard. They're saying I could lose my job over this. The texts. The video. I think Martin's going to try to blame everything on me. Say I seduced him. Say I leaked it all. I looked at her, and for the first time in a long time, I saw her clearly. Not as my wife. Not as a monster. Just as someone who was finally feeling the weight of every lie she told. And then she said the thing that almost made me laugh out loud. We can fix this, Everett. I know it's broken, but if we go public, say we were separated, that I had a breakdown. Maybe we can save our reputations. Start over. Together. Together. I stood up and looked down at her in that hospital bed, surrounded by white walls and heart monitors. You're not trying to save the marriage, I said. You're trying to save yourself. She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. I turned to leave. And just before I walked out, I said one last thing. You should ask Martin's wife how she handles betrayal. Because I think she's just getting started. Then I left her there, alone with her bandages, her four, and the echo of a life she'll never get back. And Shayla? She was waiting for me outside. But what she had in her hand was something I didn't expect, something that would change everything again. Shayla was standing outside the hospital entrance, arms crossed, back against the concrete wall. The glow of the streetlight above her looked almost theatrical, like she'd been waiting for this moment in rehearsed silence. She didn't ask how it went. She didn't have to. She could read it in my face. She still thinks this is salvageable, I muttered, unlocking my car door. She wants to play the sympathy card, turn this into some kind of PR campaign for forgiveness. Shayla sighed. They always do, until they realize no one's listening anymore. But then she reached into her purse and pulled out a white envelope. Martin dropped this off at my sister's place, she said, holding it out like it was something toxic. He didn't have the nerve to show his face, just sent it with a note. For Everett. He deserves to know. I stared at it, unsure whether to tear it open or toss it straight in the trash. Read it, Shayla said. It's not what you think. I opened it right there in the parking lot. His handwriting was neater than I expected, clean, sharp letters like someone used to filling out job applications and pretending to be stable. But the content? It was a different kind of chaos. It started like a confession, or maybe a deflection disguised as one. He wrote about how it started with innocent messages, how Corinne had vented about me, how he had listened and understood, and then, eventually, crossed a line. But he didn't stop there. No, Martin wanted to drag everything into the light. He claimed Corinne told him everything, about our finances, about our intimacy issues, about my therapy sessions. She had mocked my anxiety, called me a walking Hallmark card with abandonment issues, said I needed constant validation like a dog who never got pet enough. And then came the final blow. Martin claimed that Corinne was planning to leave me before the affair was exposed. Not to be with him, but because she had already moved money into a private account. She'd opened a shell LLC in a state I'd never even been to. She was going to disappear with half my savings and file for divorce from a beach in another time zone. She was using me to test the escape plan, he wrote. But then she started lying to me, too. I wanted to scream. Instead, I folded the letter back into the envelope and stared out into the dark. She was never going to stop, I said. Shayla didn't respond. She looked tired in a way I hadn't seen before. Not just exhausted, done, like she'd run out of grief and had nothing left but facts. I filed for separation this morning, she finally said. I don't want to waste another week pretending I don't know how this ends. I nodded. I'm starting the paperwork tomorrow. But then Shayla hesitated. There's one more thing, she said. She pulled up an email on her phone and handed it to me. It was from Corinne, sent to her. Subject, we both lost something. The message was short, but venomous. Corinne blamed Shayla for escalating everything, said she humiliated another woman just to feel powerful, and ended with a line that stopped me cold. Don't act like you didn't know he was talking to someone else during all this. Martin wasn't just lying to me. Shayla didn't flinch. I don't know what she's trying to stir up, she said. Maybe it's another lie, but I figured you should see it. I looked at her, really looked, and for the first time since all this started, I didn't know what to feel. Because if Corinne was lying, it meant nothing changed. But if she wasn't, then the only person I trusted in all this had also been keeping something from me. And that changed everything. I couldn't sleep that night. I laid in bed with the letter from Martin still echoing in my head, and Corinne's email burning through my thoughts like acid. My phone was face down on the nightstand, but I kept glancing at it like it would solve everything just by lighting up. And then, around 2:47 a.m., it did. A text. From an unknown number. Just 5 words. Ask Shayla about Seattle. No punctuation. No name. Nothing else. I sat up, heart pounding, mind racing through every conversation I'd had with Shayla. Seattle had never come up. Not once. Not in her stories. Not in the plan. Not during any of the nights we'd sat in my car for hours, comparing lies and stitching together timelines. I thought I knew every thread, every lie, every crack in the foundation. But now, I wasn't sure if I even knew what house I'd been standing in. I tried to ignore it at first. I wanted it to be noise. Corinne playing games. Martin stirring chaos. One final twist of the knife. But something about it wouldn't let go. So the next morning, I asked. Not in anger. Not accusatory. Just straight up. What happened in Seattle? Shayla froze. It wasn't the pause of someone trying to remember. It was the pause of someone deciding whether to lie or not. I used to live there, she said finally. Before I met Martin. I waited. There was someone else, she admitted. Before Martin. It was messy. He cheated. Left me with debt. I don't talk about it because I spent 2 years getting out of it. I nodded, but something about her tone didn't line up. I'd heard her speak about betrayal before. With fire. With control. This time, it was sterile. I let it drop. But the seed was planted. And I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being managed, not confided in. Later that day, I did something I hadn't done in years. I logged into my old Reddit burner account. The one I used when I was deep into forums on anxiety recovery and late-night confession threads. I searched for phrases like UX consultant affair and Corinne Martin rooftop. I wasn't even sure what I was looking for. And then I found a post. Posted under a throwaway username. 2 days ago. Titled, "He left both of us." I think she knew all along. It didn't mention names. But the details were uncanny. A woman describing how she'd partnered with the wife of her cheating husband to expose an affair. Except in her version, it was the wife's friend who had tipped her off, not her own detective work. She claimed the friend had orchestrated everything, finding the texts, leaking the video, even baiting the confrontation at the party. It read like a blueprint, word for word. And the comments? One caught my eye. Classic Seattle switch. Pretend to be the hurt one while holding the match. I Googled it. Turns out, the Seattle switch was a term used on infidelity forums to describe a rare but brutal revenge tactic, where someone pretends to be betrayed to gain trust, only to flip it back later for their own motives. It was rare, cruel, almost sociopathic. And I realized something awful. I didn't know if the post was about me, or written by her. That night, I confronted Shayla again. Not with anger, this time with exhaustion. Why me? I asked. Out of all the people she could have cheated with, why did your husband end up with my wife? Was it really random? She didn't answer right away. She just sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the floor. Then finally, sometimes, people like us don't find each other by accident. Sometimes we're drawn to the same damage. It sounded poetic, but it didn't answer the question. Because now, the real betrayal wasn't just what Corinne had done. It was wondering whether the one person I trusted to walk through the fire with me had been holding the match the entire time. And with the final divorce hearing just days away, I knew one thing. If I didn't get the truth now, I might never know who betrayed me more. The divorce hearing was scheduled for 10 a.m. sharp. I got there 20 minutes early and still felt like I was late to something bigger than court. I sat in the hallway staring at the manila folder in my lap. Bank records, asset lists, screenshots, printed out messages. My entire unraveling, now neatly organized for a judge to sort through. Corinne arrived late. She looked thinner, paler. Her once perfect curls hung loose and uncertain, like they no longer took orders from her. She avoided my eyes but gave the judge a rehearsed smile when her name was called. I wondered how many times she'd practiced that exact expression in the mirror, even now, still trying to control the narrative. Shayla wasn't there. She'd texted the night before. I need distance. For both of us. But I don't regret anything. You shouldn't either. And I didn't. Not really. Because whatever else had happened, she helped pull me out of a nightmare. Even if she had her own shadows. Even if there were questions I'd never get answers to. It didn't erase the fact that she stood beside me when I needed someone most. When the judge asked if I was ready to proceed, I stood up, took a deep breath, and did something no one expected. I'm not signing today, I said. Corinne's head snapped toward me, stunned. But I wasn't walking it back. I wasn't begging for her. I wasn't falling into denial. I was doing something else, freeing myself on my own terms. I will sign, I continued, but not with this agreement. I've made changes. She can keep the apartment. She can have the accounts we split. I don't want her money. I don't want her guilt. I just want my life back. The judge nodded slowly, processing. Corinne said nothing. Not because she agreed, but because, for once, she had no leverage left to fight with. After the hearing was over, I walked out of that courthouse without papers in my hands, without anger in my chest, without weight on my back. It was raining lightly, the kind that doesn't soak you, just reminds you you're still alive. I went home, made tea, played a record I hadn't touched in years. For once, my apartment felt quiet in a good way. That night, I got a message. Unknown number again. But this time it just said, "Thank you." I didn't know people could be that kind after everything. No name, but I knew it was Shayla. I smiled, deleted the thread, and left the window open as I fell asleep. Because I didn't need revenge anymore. I had something better. Peace.